slightly counterintuitive invisible being?
Well, a God must be like a human in order for our brains to believe he is real. Actually, he must be like a human in every way except one. He must have a single trait that is totally different than any trait that a human would normally have. And he can't have multiple traits that are different, just one. Examples of God, for example, include a king that controls thunder, a teacher who does not experience human emotions, a king who is unknowable, a human-like spirit that has only altruistic traits, or a king who is three beings in one. All of these deities are like a human, except that they each have a single counterintuitive trait. A single trait that is not like a human. Oh, and you can't see them. Why don't we believe in deities that differ in several ways or are entirely different? And why can't we see them? And why must they be all-powerful? And why must we think that they cause random events to happen? The short answer is because they must be extraordinary and at the same time compatible with our innate programming. Examples of the kinds of programming that we have include communicating with other humans, loving and obeying a father, and knowing what is ordinary and what is not, just to name a few. Therefore, a God must be human-like in order for us to communicate with him, paternal so we love and obey him, and slightly non-human so he is extraordinary. But how do we decide upon a particular God to believe in? Most people don't spend their entire lives studying everything in the universe and finally figuring out that one particular God is real and all the others are fake. If that were the case, then how would you explain the geographic clustering of different faiths? No, the majority of us simply hear a story and choose to believe it. Interestingly, some things are easy for Homo sapiens to believe, and other things are not. We easily believe stuff for which there is no evidence, and reject stuff for which there's a mountain of evidence. Evidence is not as important as programming language. For example, 50% of Americans continue to reject the story of human evolution because it is not told in Human Brain 10.3. It just so happens that Darwin wrote everything in a program he called Reality 48.569. The Wizard of Oz is a great example and a favorite of mine. Do you remember when the curtains come down and the wizard turns out to be an old man operating a panel of levers and buttons? As long as the wizard was a slightly counterintuitive invisible being who seemed to control everything, we accepted him as a god. When we saw that he was a man pulling levers, it was obvious to us that he was not. Well, the little old man pulling levers could still have been a god. Probably a much better one in reality, I would think. But why is it so obvious that a man pulling buttons, or pushing buttons and pulling levers, is not a god, while an invisible, slightly counterintuitive being clearly is?